Welcome to the IVM Podcast Network.
Hey, it's Dinkar from Geek. Now, if you love to travel, if you swear by wanderlust, then have I got the podcast for you. Political analyst Ambika Vishwanath and corporate executive Hoshna reporter quit their day jobs in 2015 and set out on a journey to explore India that covered 15,000 kilometers and 13 states. And now you can hear them discuss that and the travel culture in our country on the Rediscovery Project. You can check out new episodes every Monday on iTunes, Stitcher, the IVM app, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And listen to it while traveling.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Geek Fruit Podcast. My name is Tejas. Today I'm joined by Jishnu Guha. Hi Jishnu.
Hello, Tejas Menon.
And I have Navin Noronha.
That is my surname, yes.
Yeah, but it's so difficult. I keep getting confused. Sorry. I'm not getting confused. It's just like a tongue twist, isn't it?
Yeah.
I had a teacher called Winfred Noronha.
Yeah.
That's all.
We're rather rare. Naronas are not that common.
Really?
Yeah.
What is Vernon Noronha?
That's one of the reasons why we start changing our surnames, because people couldn't pronounce it.
No, it's fine. It's just,
He might have been called Wilfred. Which is the female and which is the masculine?
Winfred, I want to say, is the female.
Winifred. Winifred.
Yeah, Winifred.
But I think he might have been Winfred. Without the I in the middle.
Oh, yeah, no, not Will.
Though he might have been Wilfred.
Wilfred
We
seems
never
more
know
of a, yeah, I guess.
what equation he had with Fred. Was he willing towards him, or was he willing?
Yeah. Hey, come on, man.
Those
You're a comedian.
Yeah, one of us
here
here is a professional comedian. Guess which one?
And guess what? People can't spell my name on posters either. So like for the past 2 years of doing comedy.
Dude, even I misspelled your name
Like
on
with,
the
yeah,
WhatsApp group.
with two E's.
No, it's either two E's or the surnames all like, somebody's like Arora.
Wait, hang on. Let me see if I can
Aurora.
spell. Isn't it Noronha?
Yeah.
No, it's
bingo.
Navin, idiot.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, now, so, Naveen,
Yes.
you're a professional comedian.
Yes.
Jishnu, you are a professional something.
I try to be.
You're a Geek
I
Fruit
do my best.
professional,
He's
as
a
am
musician
I.
and a filmmaker. Let's not
Yes, he is.
hold back.
Quite famous.
Yes.
And so on this day, actually all of us are coming back from different spots in the world. So welcome back everybody. We have a cool episode today. We're going to be talking about adaptations. The best adaptations from page to screen. In this case, it could be a novel to a TV show, a novel to a movie, or maybe a graphic novel to, either or. So yeah, we're going to be talking about our favorite ones. Does anybody want to put any disclaimers to this concept before we move forward?
There's a very high chance of spoiling the things that we're talking about. So I'm going to say that.
Good
because
one.
we never remember
Good
to do
one.
that.
Yes.
Yeah. So
And we might mention Twilight somewhere down the line. For all you know. I just mentioned it now.
I won't mind if you spoil it for me. Do you know what happens in Twilight?
I do know what happens.
What happens in Twilight?
So in about 45 minutes, my nephew, who had read all the books, he's a voracious reader and he reads everything. So it
How
doesn't
many
matter.
are there?
There are 4, if
There
I'm
are
not
4.
mistaken. Yeah. And he explained the entire. He just told me the Cliff's Notes of the entire story.
Hit me with the Cliff Notes.
Okay, it's Bella, who's this chick. She's kind of bored. Are we going to talk about Twilight later on? In that case, I feel like
if
I
we cover
should
it
save
now,
it.
we don't have to later.
Yeah,
on. So
ideally rip that
get-
band-aid off and just tell me.
All
what
out
right,
of the
this
way.
is how the Geek Food Podcast begins today. We're talking about Twilight. So and correct me if I'm wrong. Have you read the books?
Yes.
All right, so I'm going to give you my version of events. This is through 2 channels of communication. This is first from the book, who's Stephanie Meyer, through Siddhant, my nephew, and through me, and now to you guys. So it begins with Bella, who's a high school teenager, whatever.
Regular human person.
Human person,
Yep.
very pale.
Pretty
and
pale.
and she goes to school and she meets a dude who joins school then, or he's already been in the school.
So he was already there. And
He was
everybody
already
kind
there.
of like they've been here and they're the Cullens who hang out.
He's
I would say.
a Cullen. He's
Yeah.
an Edward
Okay,
Cullen.
guys, this is not what I wanted. I'm
Okay,
giving
cool.
you 60 seconds, right? And go.
All right,
Finish
so
this damn thing.
Bella falls in love with Edward
Yeah.
because he's like the most beautiful thing. There are enough chapters that are spent describing his insane beauty.
50
and then we
seconds.
find out that he's a vampire and he's in the middle of a feud. His family's in the middle of a feud with another thing. Then there's Jacob, who's a werewolf, and then they fight and they
40
all
seconds.
love Bella. Bella then then gets super pregnant with Edward's
Ooh,
kid.
plot
And
twist.
xenomorph style, it doesn't grow in 9 months. It grows in 9 seconds, bruh.
Yeah.
Oh,
All
damn.
She's
right.
half
And-
human, half vampire.
And then the
Wait, so
human,
has he pulled out before it even gets
oh, it doesn't even matter.
Okay.
Yeah,
He's
and-
broken everything.
So
Alright.
he's breaking her internal system.
20
And
seconds.
she's pregnant. Then she releases the child. Child comes out. She's already a huge human
like
person.
a life-size
yeah,
person?
she's already a teenager when
Oh,
she comes
damn.
out.
10
Yeah.
seconds.
Then they have to fight these guys called the Volturi.
Yeah, who are
and
after the child. because
after the
they
child,
can't
and
have
then
that.
they,
5,
and then they go,
4,
and then the Volturi are about to
3,
fight, and then they say no, let's not
2,
fight.
Yeah, it's a dream sequence.
1.
That's the whole movie.
Yes.
Boom.
It was a dream?
Yeah, the end fight.
Wait,
is a dream
what?
sequence. Yes.
The whole thing is
That's the end of Twilight? It was all just a dream?
Yeah.
yeah. What it
Dude.
was a Twilight dream.
I wrote an essay in like the 5th grade, and I ended it with "It was all just a dream," and I was heavily reprimanded for
Yeah, of
that.
course. That's the worst cop out ever.
I could have just said, "Well, Stephanie Meyer did it." Damn.
Why do you think we hate Stephanie? No, we don't hate Stephanie Meyer, do we?
Not really. Like,
Did you like the books, or why did
the
you
books
read
were
all
nice.
these?
The books
Yeah?
were nice. Like as long as as a reading fantasy,
Okay.
you go with the whole flow. And this is all about a love story, a love triangle, and about
Yeah.
protecting your family. And as the way she writes
Yeah.
is enchanting enough. That's why a lot of people read it.
Right.
Sure.
But then when it became a movie,
So
it
that's a
was-
good point. Let's talk about how now it was adapted into a film. Now we know that there was a lot of hype behind it because there was Robert Pattinson, fresh off his death
Yeah.
from Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
So
And
he was a zombie?
yeah.
Fresh
and-
death.
So a lot of people obviously blame Kristen Stewart because she was unemotive as F, in the entire series.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Alright.
Bella as a character, if you read about her, she's very
Yes.
conflicted, and she's also like a young, she's 13 Reasons Why, that chick from
All right, got it.
Hannah Baker. Essentially, that's her in a fantasy universe.
Okay.
So she's bitchy all the time, and she's always I want to be given attention, and one of her reasons is to being with a cool guy will kind of give her the attention that she needs.
But isn't there a thing where she
She has all these
attracted
narratives.
to this
She has
dude?
all these narratives in this head that goes on in the book. So it's her perspective throughout the book. So
I
it's-
have
Oh,
a question. So why does Edward, of the coolest guy, so to speak, of all people, choose this needy thing?
Yeah, why are people all over her? What's her like?
What's her deal?
And Edward even tells her, you won't like me because I'm a vampire. So get away from
I
me.
like how he's so matter of fact. You won't like me. I'm a vampire.
Yeah, get away from me. But she's no.
What are her favorable qualities that make these two guys fight over her?
She's pretty.
She's sexy.
She's
Cool.
feisty.
Yeah.
She would sacrifice herself for her father and other people she cares for.
Ooh, so
Okay,
that's
and other people.
straight
I
up
was like,
there.
I was like, the dad. Where's the dad played? Okay.
Yeah.
But wait. Okay. So the age-old question: the chicken and the egg. Who wins, Team Jacob or Team Edward?
Edward wins, right? She
Edward
marries-
does
she
win.
marries
Yeah, she
him.
does. Yeah, she bangs
Okay.
him.
She
and
has
has
a
that
vampire
kid.
baby with him.
But so then, what happens to? Does Jacob get the short end completely? Like, is he dead?
I mean,
by the
he's
end
a
of it?
werewolf, so I
He's
mean,
lingering
already
around.
his life is awesome already.
Does he
And they're
just
all
like go
this-
live in a
this-
cave at the end? Like,
no,
what's
no.
up?
So he has all these bros who hang out in shorts, and they all convert into werewolves and come back again with shorts on. That's the most. Yeah.
It's worse than the Hulk.
They're like
But-
anti-Hulk. Yeah, like
yeah,
you're wearing
and
shorts
the,
when
and
you're
the
a normal
animation though in the movies of the werewolves was pretty good.
Yeah.
When it
yeah, I
transformed
did
and
see
everything.
a few of those.
But in the
clips.
first two movies, the vampire fights were all slow mo. They were all like weird, glistening, red-eyed weirdos.
Oh, so who is the director of these films? I
I
think
don't
I
know, I
know.
don't know.
It's Catherine something. I want to say.
Oh, yeah?
It was a female
Bigelow.
director. No, she's great. She's really good. No, but no, I can't remember. But it was a female director. And I think these movies did well at the box office. It may not been critically received.
Sure.
But they did well. They did the job. I think, and I think that.
Yeah.
they knew what
The
they wanted to
fandom
do
was
and they
happy.
did it.
Yeah. No, and I mean this in a sense that we don't say the Harry Potter movies as much as the books.
Yeah.
But the Harry Potter movies are not
They're
terrible.
not- they're not terrible.
In
They
fact,
know-
they
I
progressively
think-
get better as they go along.
Yes,
I wanna say.
they're
Well, some
yes,
of them
so
are better.
To
Towards
an
the end,
extent, I agree with you. Yes, they do, and that I also agree that you've gone on record to say that your favorite Potter movie is the Fantastic Beasts prequel.
Yes, this is
which
true.
is nothing like the previous ones, and so they realized what was working and what didn't. And I thought that
But is it not because we didn't know the source material?
very
Yeah.
much so.
Yeah.
That's a
The
big part.
characters were new to us.
But tonally as well, I think there was a very stark difference in the way that they approached it. But also, I think that as the Potter movies progressed chronologically, the stories got more complicated and interesting, but I thought that the movies stagnated by by episode 5,
Yeah.
5, 6,
Yeah.
and 7. I genuinely, even though I've read the books and I can tell you what happens in 5, 6, and 7 vaguely enough, it's been a while.
Yeah.
With the movies, if you showed me a frame from any of those movies, I couldn't tell you which one I'm looking
This
at.
is true. Yeah,
They
I
just
think
look,
that-
they look sort of.
But I
Six,
mean,
six was a letdown because the book, I remember reading the sixth book and I'm like, oh my god, this.
Yeah.
When I find out like who the Half-Blood
Right.
you
Prince
didn't
is.
guess? I totally guessed that.
No, I
I'm
never
so
guessed.
proud
I
of
never
myself.
guessed it. Like I was in 9th standard, I think.
Okay.
No, I was older than that. But the first book I read, I think I was in 9th standard, and then
Okay.
I read them like back
Sure.
to back.
Sure.
But sixth one, I was really happy about the way that the book was generally because it also took a break from Harry's adventures, but also
Yeah,
here's Voldemort,
Yeah.
learn your enemy.
Yeah, the
first.
stories themselves got darker.
and the movies minimalized on that so much and made it all about like teenagers falling in love.
Yeah, I remember distinctly that sixth movie being very like teenager-y
Yeah,
kind
and
of.
Lavender Brown was white in this one. Did you notice that?
Oh,
in the
who's-
early,
is she
brown?
black in the
yeah,
book?
in the first in the books in the movies rather when they
Right.
first show Lavender Brown they
Who's-
show
oh, she's white and then she becomes black.
no, she's
later on.
black first, then she's
Oh,
white.
and then she becomes oh, that's even
Yeah,
worse.
if you
yeah,
wanna
and
be
she
my
becomes
brother,
a
don't matter.
pivotal character.
Wait, who was she again? I forget who she
She
was.
is the one who basically tries to put the potion in Ron's. So she basically starts making out with Ron a lot because to make Hermione jealous. I mean, like he embarks in this
Yeah, she
relationship.
calls him Roro.
Roro, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Hermione is just basically like grumpy and
That was a
making
thing.
canaries around
Sure.
her head.
Yeah.
So all of that we didn't have to see. Like there was like 10 hours of footage in there.
Okay.
It's unnecessary.
All right.
Okay,
So
well-
Not good. Not a
Yeah,
good adaptation.
Not a good adaptation at all.
Okay, all right.
That's what like a lot of people hate on the books because of the movies. I feel that's this indirect hate comes towards the books, and I'm like, give the books a chance. They're not that bad.
Okay, fair
as long
enough.
as like you read in your teenage years and then
And
you move on.
as long as you know what you're getting into.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no shame in reading those books so long as you admit that you are reading.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah,
That's-
sure,
Like,
yeah.
look,
Whatever.
like as you grow up, you read Sidney Sheldon and you realize, oh shit, I was reading this as a younger kid for some reason. Like there's erotica and that kind of enticed me.
Yeah, and adventure, man.
Adventure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a thriller.
So
yeah.
like now it's not the utmost quality of what you read now.
Yeah.
But going back, you still read Sidney Sheldon because you know what you're getting into, right?
Fair enough. Yeah,
just
it's
not-
like how I'd still read like Agatha Christie and
Yeah,
stuff.
and there was always a female lead in those books. I was glad about the
Yeah,
fact that
that's true,
The,
yeah.
the books were on the heroine
Yeah.
who was doing all these nefarious stuffs on the side, but then
Sure.
she was also like killing it.
Sometimes
Achieving
literally.
some-
Yeah. So okay, cool. So that's interesting. So I'm saying I would still probably read a Twilight over 50 Shades of Grey,
Yeah.
even though I don't want to say they overlap, but maybe they're kind of like, I don't know, they're the same.
Not
in terms-
really, not
Literally.
Yeah, I thought. I mean, I haven't read either, but I
It's-
feel like I would not have made a correlation between the two of them.
Oh yeah, no.
No.
Okay, cool.
Because
I don't know why.
One is
because-
vampires, one is
Exact-
real
no,
people
but
vampires.
but like
Yeah.
it's the same.
Like, the biting is real,
Is,
dude. It's
is
not
there
fictional.
a lot of like graphic detail in the Twilight
No,
books?
no.
There aren't.
About sex? No.
Yeah?
No,
Okay, cool.
not at all.
All right, okay,
it is
so
meant for a PG
There's
audience.
probably
So
more
it is-
bestiality in 50 Shades than there
It's
is in
them like
in
standing
Twilight.
in the woods behind the house and talking about how she'll miss him if he goes away and all of that. Like a lot of
Oh.
romance in there.
Okay, but no like.
It's puppy love.
Okay, I thought so. It's well within the it's square in the YA.
Even the
space.
sex scene that happens after marriage is more sensually written rather than like how
Okay, how-
Sidney Sheldon would
So
write
have
ki,
you-
oh she went to the bathroom, filled hot water in her mouth and took his penis. Then he felt I clearly remember these things.
Wait, hang on. Wait, whoa, back up. Hot water in his mouth and then she's
in
sucking
her
off?
mouth. In her mouth. She
Hot,
fills
hot water in her mouth.
And
and
then
she's-
yeah,
then if you
because
give a blowjob, apparently it's the best thing ever.
it's
With
a-
hot water?
It's a warm sensation, Jishnu.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
You never know until you try it, right?
Yes.
Well, okay, cool. Noted.
Citation
I suppose.
needed.
Yeah.
What just happened?
All right. Cool. Interesting. Okay. So that's Twilight.
I was-
And
wow, okay.
yeah. So let us now move on to something. I'm going to try and bring some
Dignity back into this.
dignity back into the conversation.
Yeah.
I have a pick which I actually from a book which I only read maybe last year. I read Philip K. Dick's "Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep," from which obviously Blade Runner was spawned off. But yeah, there's a huge difference between the book and the film. Have you guys seen have you read the book?
No, I haven't.
Okay, have you
seen the
ever seen the movie?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So in the book, so if you know the movie is very focused on the hunt of. They give them the name the Blade Runner, obviously, to kind of hunt these replicants down and retire them. And basically, the thought process, or at least the philosophy of the movie is. What is it to be like human versus what is it to be like, an android, and how can you have empathy? But the book is like really weird. Like the books, I mean, it still has some of the similar concepts. But in the book, like the entire premise is the same character, Rick Deckard. He wants to. It's a status symbol in that futuristic time. Basically, there was World War Terminus, and it kind of wipes out. Like it's like this post-apocalyptic kind of world. And because of that, it's so weird. It's a status symbol to have an animal, a real animal, and poor people. Because they can't afford animals, they buy electric animals, and they pretend that they're real. And it's a weird thing that happens in the future.
Tamagotchi.
So something similar. So Rick Deckard and his wife, they have a fake. I don't know what they have. Like a fake. I think they have a Nubian llama or something at some point of time. I can't remember now. But they have like this fake thing, and his job is basically he wants to retire all these replicants so that he can buy his wife a real animal. And that's the whole, that pretty much forms
the driving force.
Yeah, the crux of the book. And it's awesome. There's some weird stuff that happens in this book. And one thing I definitely want to talk about. So there's a fake, like a techno religion that people follow in the book called Mercerism. And what Mercerism is, it's like a machine that you put your head into, and then you're connected to the community of people who are also, experiencing the same thing. And it's just visions of a man named William Mercer who's climbing up a hill and people are throwing rocks at him. And when you see that, you start to feel like this existential dread and that pity, and that kind of unites people in the religion. That's what it's really like bizarre and out there. So what happens ultimately in the book is that, he does all these things, retires all these replicants. He meets another guy who's way more ruthless than he is, and he starts to realize that he's empathetic towards these robots, because he finds a robot that he, like very much like in the movie, he finds somebody who he kind of likes and things like that. And then ultimately towards the end, what happens is, he buys, this llama or whatever, and he keeps it for his wife. And then people who are jealous of him kill the llama and whatever.
Llama's rights. Oh my God. Never forget.
And so towards the end, he kind of retires all the replicants, but he starts to feel bad. And the overlying thought of the entire book is that, he ends up in a space somewhere, basically, where he goes off-world, or basically to this new place, where he realizes that he is the one he's trying to climb this hill, and people are throwing rocks at him.
Sure.
And it's just a weird fever dream kind of thing.
The more you talk, the more I realize why the movie is the way it is, and not included all these things.
No, of course. No, but
I'm sure it was an interesting read, but this does not sound like it's going to make good. I don't know if it'll.
Visually.
I think it is very compelling. I just don't think it translates as well.
Yeah,
and so at the end, basically, what happens is so basically the last thought of the book is that where it differs heavily from the film, I want to say, is that he finally buys another electric, like a sheep or something, and he gives it to his wife, and his wife is just like, why do we have this even? And then he just basically muses and he says that, yeah, sure, real animals have thoughts and feelings, but maybe we should spare a thought for the electric ones as well. That's what,
Dun,
so,
dun, dun.
Yeah, so that's basically, that's where it kind of ends off.
Sure.
And I'm sure this must have made a lot more sense when Philip K. Dick actually released the book, and it was, part of a larger body of work that he was putting out at that time. But when we came to the film, I mean, that's Ridley Scott, like through and through. We've done an episode where we've spoken about Ridley Scott a little bit. And, his vision for this weird, neo-noir kind of future is really what defines the film. If you think Blade Runner, I think of that those neon lights and that darkness and the Vangelis score.
Yeah.
And that's it. And that's what I think about. And obviously the greatest thing of that film is Harrison Ford, replicant, blah, blah. But those are the things that made it so unique at that point of time. But I don't know, I'd like to hear you guys, what you thought.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Like, I've only seen the movie the one time, several years ago.
Yeah.
I will get around to rewatching it before the new one comes out, obviously.
That's why I felt like it was relevant.
I'm kind of waiting for that though, because what I recall from the movie was that I could immediately tell right off the bat that this was the kind of movie that was indulgent, not to mean that it's a bad thing, but I could tell that this was
visionary.
This was Ridley Scott being like, guys, I'm going all out for this one. Just please stick with me through this thing.
That's why, as a novice film viewer, you can't really enjoy the movie unless you understand nuances.
Yeah, you need. That's why I'd heard so much about it my whole life, but I knew that I wanted to give this movie its time of day because it needed. You can't half-ass that movie.
Yeah, that's true.
And I'm with you. Like, the things that stick with me the most about that film are visual-related stuff, the soundtrack and things like that. Yeah, not so much, the driving dilemma which is presented to the viewer as like, is he, isn't he?
Yeah,
because that's a trope of a lot of stories, which is not to say again like a negative thing, but like that's not the unique factor in the.
The beauty is that all throughout the movie's telling us that he is.
Yeah, it's pretty. I mean, we
so
even end the movie like the difference between what the original, and I don't think we can find the original cut anywhere online. Like, everything that we guys have probably seen is the director's cut, and that ends the film very differently with this whole unicorn origami thing, which is supposed to
the Inception totem.
Yeah, exactly. And it's supposed to basically say that Harrison Ford is possibly a replicant, which is why he's so empathetic towards its kind. And I'm actually really eager to see where it goes. Like, and while I still love the tonal quality of that film and so many things that we just talked about, I really want to see the new one which Villeneuve is doing, like really kind of get into maybe the story of it. I mean, it kind of retcons the idea. It's like what I was speaking to you about The Force Awakens. I mean, so just a small aside, but we said, when The Force Awakens came out, two things happened. One is like the world was like, yeah, The Force Awakens is great. But then we also realized it undid like all
your
the
happily ever after is gone.
Happily ever after is gone, and we just realized that Luke, Leia, and Han just had shitty lives after that. So I think similarly, what it does for Blade Runner, by the very fact that it has, is that I don't know if replicants live past a certain age, but the very fact that Harrison Ford is alive and lives in this one kind of
same question
retcons that idea.
I'm with you, and I agree. It does. I mean, any sequel undoes a happily ever after, which is why like sequels are always. You have to take it with a pinch of salt. Like, did you really need it? I was pretty happy with happily ever after. Like, happily ever after is a solid ending.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a good ending. It's a ballsy one to do today.
Yeah, exactly. But so the fact that they're making a sequel, I'm very excited. I'm nowhere near as emotionally turmoiled as I was about Force Awakens for those reasons, because I don't care nearly as much about that character as I do about Han Solo. But I think that, like what I was saying, is that what I took away with Blade Runner was everything from the aesthetics to it, to the way in which it was presented to me. The story is not what sold it for me, and that's fine, because it doesn't have to be. Not everything has to be in the writing. Sometimes it can just be a very simple story, a very simple concept, and it's just the way it's executed. Like, one of my favorite films ever is adapted from a play, 12 Angry Men. Is
lovely, one of my favorite
brilliant
films.
film, and it's presented to you exactly like a play. There's all of like 1 20-second lapse in time when they all like write on a ballot.
Right at the end.
Right towards the end, when they all write on a ballot, and then they all just pass the paper along. They didn't want to show 12 guys writing on paper and handing it to it. But other than that, it's a seamless film.
It's seamless.
And it's really beautifully presented, because it's a play that needed to be captured on film so that a mass audience can see it. And it's done just as such. And it's full of these really tight super close-ups, and you feel like you're just watching a play. And with Blade Runner, while the story was not what really impressed me, I can't take that away from the film, because I thought that the aesthetics behind it, the vibe, the neon, the soundtrack, all the stuff that went around the story was so good that I'm excited to see the sequel, just to see that,
to revisit that
world. Not that I care so much about that world. I rarely find myself actively thinking about Blade Runner, but every time, like, episode 8 or 9 of this podcast was when we went to Imagica. And I did remember that we distinctly, at one point, saw some random diner that they have.
Oh, right.
And it was at like 7 p.m. at night.
The American diner.
It was, pissing cats and dogs, and we were trying to find someplace to take shelter, and we run into this diner which has like this Cadillac parked outside and neon lights, and we were like, holy crap.
And it was reflecting in the water.
It was reflecting in the water, so and we were alone at Imagica of all places, because it was like a Monday afternoon, and we were by ourselves. And all of us just like stopped dead in our tracks, and we look at this diner with the neon signs and like the light reflecting. Like, dude, this looks like Blade Runner. I've never thought to myself.
Yeah, exactly.
Whenever I think about Blade Runner, it's not because of like, whoa, you're acting like a robot, man. You remind me of the replicants. No, I think I see neon signs, and I think, that looks like Ridley Scott's
he
Blade
really
Runner.
set a tone for like what futuristic kind of films could be like. I do want to say that even though I do like the story, I think some of the science fiction concepts in that film were really attractive to me, like, to begin with. Also, like, I grew up playing a game, funnily by a company called Westworld Entertainment, and Actually, yeah, that makes so much sense now. All right. But yeah, so Westworld Entertainment had this game called Blade Runner where you play as a detective called Ray McCoy, and it's in parallel to the events of the film. And I kind of got my introduction to Blade Runner through that game. I don't know what it was about, but it looked, and it took like a lot of the cutscenes from the film as well. And it was awesome, man. And I think, things like the Voigtkampf machine, where basically, you feed questions to a person and, to check whether and you see how their pupils react. I think a lot of those science fiction concepts were killer, man.
Yeah.
They were so cool.
It starts off with
it's
that.
really cool. Yeah, exactly. That first death
clueless
scene.
as to what's happening in this movie.
Really
what am I
good.
watching?
And I think I hope that we can get into the ethical dilemma a little bit more.
I feel
in 2049. That would be really nice.
And knowing Villeneuve, like he'll obviously capture it.
Good actors, Gosling.
So
So it's going to be good. Cool. On that note, we'll just take a short break, come back, and talk about some more films that were originally books. Yeah.
That was Tantrik Steve from Hansraj College, Delhi, performing at IIT Bombay's Mood Indigo. Just like them, there's a lot of new talent and art coming out of colleges all across India, but unfortunately most of this goes completely unnoticed or ignored. To fix this, we started atkt.in. Hi, I'm Ankar, I'm a musician and a rapper, and I found that one of the best things about being an artist myself is finding new talent. Through atkt.in, Tanya, my colleague who's a dancer, and our whole team really is putting all of our efforts into discovering and promoting all the coolest talent that's coming out of colleges all across India. And this goes up on our website, our social media, TV, radio, and now, of course, this podcast with IVM. Make sure you go to our website, support the talent with your likes, your shares, your comments. All of that really matters. Go ahead, check it out. atkt.in.
Right, we're back. We're talking about books that became movies, or maybe plays that became movies, or graphic novels,
or
etc.
short stories that became movies.
Or short stories that became
Which
movies.
I
have a short
very-
story?
Yes, I have, called All You Zombies by Robert A. Heinlein.
Yes,
And,
which became I'm Legend?
No, it became Predestination.
Predestination.
Yes,
Right,
we
right,
bring
right.
it back again on this
Right.
podcast, and I cannot recommend this movie enough.
Yeah, I can't
I've already
either.
done it on IVM likes, but
You know the problem about you've not seen Predestination. So here's the problem with talking about Predestination is that if you talk about it, you can't.
you can't explain it to anybody, and they haven't watched it, so you can't really share the joy of having watched it.
No, and the other thing is that to explain too much is to give away the exact concept, and the other problem is that if you don't explain it, it doesn't sound as attractive as on paper.
Yeah.
I can't tell you that it's a time travel film, which is why it's so by the very nature of it being time travel, it's already going to be really dynamic in terms of like how timelines are presented in the film, and obviously it becomes non-linear, and just I think in terms of I don't know how to explain it, but in terms of the approach and how the characters describe their lives and things like that, and it explain the story, this is one of the best time travel films I've seen in my life.
And standout Sarah Snook, I don't know. I
My
discovered
gosh.
that woman.
So
and
there are only two actors in the film.
Yeah.
Like main,
passengers.
literally, there are only two. Who one is played by Ethan Hawke, who is on point as per usual. He's always great in like practically everything I've seen him in. And Sarah Snook, who's this Australian actress with this breakout role, which she just killed. I can't explain. It's like it's so good.
So that for me is one of those most like when you can take something as a base material and build on that
and make it even better. Yeah,
to an extent.
So do you like it more than the book because of the ideas added on top of it, or because of how they?
So I watched the movie first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I was impressed by the movie. I was blown away. I watched it thrice.
Yeah, you have to watch it a couple of times.
Then I realized that it's based on a short story.
Sure.
So when I read the short story, I was blown again. But this time on a different level altogether, because this guy kind of summarizes the whole story of the movie or what they're hinting at in a few short words.
Right.
And so it's kind of like a codependent, admiration of both. The fact that this can exist as a single form of material where you can enjoy this, while also at the same hand, like they have adapted this into something which is also amazing at the same time. So I don't know. I can't say which is better right now, but definitely a great adaptation if there's any, in my opinion.
And was that tonally again? Just do you think that like when you read the short story?
Yeah.
Obviously, you had the bias of having the movie like now etched into your brain, having seen it several times.
Yeah.
But do you think that the movie's tonality was doing justice to what the guy was trying to write. Like,
Yeah,
the
definitely.
visuals that he was depicting in Words, do you think was appropriately adapted, or do you think he just went on speed and just said, I'm going to now blow this up and make it that much more visceral because an audience needs to see more
like
excitement?
what Michael Bay would do.
No. So even,
Yeah, exactly.
even in
Yeah,
the short story, you are settling down. Basically, you're going into these two people's lives and they're talking, and you're kind of following the conversation. Right?
Yeah.
It's very slow. It's slow paced. It's not the conversation is not even that interesting.
Right.
But you're reading, hoping to find some meaning in that conversation.
And
right?
as a movie, in the same way, it starts off slow paced and it's
They're
not too
talking about
exciting.
like sundry stuff until the person who's coming to the bar drops one of those truth bombs.
Yeah, sure.
Like, oh, this happened. So that is essentially what the tone is also like very, very similar.
Oh
to
man, I should really read this. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
you
can find this online.
Okay, cool.
It's in a
I'm gonna check
PDF
it
format
out.
somewhere.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
That sounds excellent.
Yeah.
Only because I know what the story
comes,
is.
yeah.
Yeah. So okay, cool, man. That's great. Yeah, I've seen so many of these short stories just make it into films, which just kind of elevate the entire. I mean, like Memento Mori is one of those. Story of Your Life, which became a rival. So yeah, there are plenty of these short stories which just have such simple ideas, and then they find a really good director to kind of.
I remember once, I would read a lot of sci-fi, a lot of Asimov, and I actually stole a book from my library, college library, because I don't know, I just wanted to be adventurous.
It was your college library. Couldn't you just get it for free?
Yeah, so they lent me for like 2 weeks, and then they were like, you can't give it, and so I was in an engineering college, right? They were like, you can take only one, general reading
only
book.
one fun book for
Fun
you.
book, in a month. That's how bad it is.
That was a joke I was making, but it's true.
It's true. My college actually had that rule, so I sneaked that book out and I read all of. So there's so many potential stories in there, and that's a fact, right? Because sometimes you have all these big, thick books which are transform into movies and they become so much shorter and truncated.
That's
like
very true.
I don't know if you read Salman Rushdie's Midnight Children.
Yeah, I didn't like the movie.
Yeah, the movie was terrible, and
I couldn't finish the book.
So I finished the book, and book is intense. The book is a long read. It's a test of patience.
It's a big one.
Yeah, but
as all Salman Rushdie books.
Rushdie books are always
but then there's a nice flow to it. There's more to character building over there.
Sure.
And here they're just like popping and something's happening. They're taking the magical effects and enhancing that.
Yeah, I can see that being the problem. Do you like Salman Rushdie?
Yeah. I enjoy Sidney versus like.
Okay, I tried reading Midnight Children. Couldn't finish
I couldn't finish Midnight Children. I
Florence
couldn't finish Ground Beneath Her Feet.
Princess of Florence. What is that? Yeah, the prince.
I've only read one and I finished it, which
the
was
Satanic Verses.
No, I tried Satanic. I couldn't finish it. I finished Haroon and the Sea of Stories because it's such a small book.
Okay.
It was the only Rushdie book I found that was like less than 300 pages.
Yeah, it's hard.
Like, cool.
It's hard stuff. Another good short story, Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption. That's also a short story which made it.
Have you read it?
I have, yeah. I've read that whole collection of stories.
Okay.
Man, in that book, I think it was another one for 1408. I don't know if you've seen that movie.
No.
So it's basically John Cusack and Samuel L. Jackson. And John Cusack is basically he's like a D-myths kind of mythbuster for all these, haunted houses and stuff like that.
Sure.
And he's gone and stayed in every single haunted house he could find, and then he writes about it, and then it becomes like a publication. And so finally he goes to one of these places which he's never been to, called this hotel, and some hotel with a room called 1408. And Samuel L. Jackson is the hotel manager, and he's like, man, you don't want to do that, man. And he says, no, I'm going to do it. And he goes, obviously has an insane experience, and it was fairly scary. It's not the best, but the short story was very interesting. So Stephen King wrote that short story as a training short story, like as in like he was trying to write it as a example to tell budding writers how to write a horror story.
Yeah.
And so he wrote it, and then that became like they were like, no, this is good. Let's just make it into a film.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. It was pretty strange.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to bring up a thing about when it comes to adapting stuff. Do you have a preference for when a book becomes either a sequelized film series or a singular film
Broken into
or a TV show?
Okay.
Because I want to throw in The Killing Joke.
Right.
All right. Because for several reasons. So one thing is that you have the standard, book to screen straight away, and it's just as long as that story was. A little bit more of extrapolation, but it's limited to like 90 minutes to like 2.5 hours or whatever. You then have The Killing Joke, which added a prologue essentially. It just made up a prologue. Or then you have
heavily controversial prologue.
Sure.
Yes.
But it added something because it felt like that one singular isolated story wasn't enough for whatever reason. And then you have American Gods, which, like say Game of Thrones, for example, says we need to make this into a serialized.
American Gods is one book. Sorry, is it just one book?
Yeah,
or
it's
is
just the one book,
Okay.
and it's made into 8 episodes. But so that's one thing that's always kind of gnawed at me at the back of my head, of just like, because the books always have some sense of closure, even if like take like Twilight or Harry Potter, like the most obvious sequelized story, like the minute those stories begin, you can tell that it's not a coincidence that it's his first year, because you're going to find out what's going to happen second, third, fourth, fifth. But books, for some reason, always seem to give you a lot more closure than films. And I don't know if it's just like egregious marketing or whatnot, but like when a movie or a TV show ends on a cliffhanger, it's always so like, come on.
Okay,
and books aren't ever
but
like that.
You don't think movies like have some closure and stuff like that?
They do, but I don't feel like, I feel like the closure in a book is far more satisfying.
Yeah, that's true. I can see
maybe
it.
because there's just a lot more work put into like finishing a book. Like you finish a movie in like 2 hours, you finish a book, it takes several hours.
I don't know, man. Like, so for me, as I said, Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Sure.
I had collected all like 6 of them until the 7th one came out, and when I started reading one, I wanted to read all of them back to back.
Right.
Same with the movie. So I had the same, excited feeling for both books and movies. So I can't really,
You can't really differentiate? Okay.
Yeah.
I think there's a difference, for me at least, I think there's a difference between a book, like a novel, and a graphic novel. I think, like a movie that I wanted to talk about was Watchmen, and, obviously graphic novel is so celebrated, and it's so, like, untouchable, like nobody wanted to like do that. It was in development hell for like 20 years or something. The book was written in 1985 and it was a serialized format, and then it was made into a collected volume, so that became a better read. So I think the movie adaptation for Watchmen does so many things that the book doesn't do. Like, I think it adds a lot. Like, they made it easier to digest that ending, whether instead of making it an alien, they made it, Dr. Manhattan. So it was very neatly tied up, Rorschach's, the way when he implodes, the marks. That was genius.
Yeah,
like, for
was,
me, that adds so much, like, more meaning to these characters, which they couldn't get from the book. But I still think there's that one chapter in the book where, Dr. Manhattan is explaining his perception of time. I think it's my favorite chapter in probably anything I've read. And the way it's presented in that book, and physically, because you're looking at a static image.
The way the panels
the way panels are like static, and he's talking about time, which is fluid and linear in nature, or non-linear for him.
And it's on Mars.
Yeah, it's so fantastically portrayed in that book that I knew that there was no way they were going to do it well. Like, I mean, there was no way you could capture that feeling on film. And so I think for that, obviously, it fails there in that sense. But I think films can just add so much more, and the fact that he used all the panels as the very storyboards for making the film make it really good. So I think in terms of like a graphic novel, there's a lot you could literally take and put on screen. Particularly for Watchmen, it was difficult to adapt that thing, but I think it's easier with graphic novels. For a book though, and if you take Harry Potter or Game of Thrones, those books are serialized books. Like, those are, so I feel like it would make a better TV show rather than a film, because if there's different episodes, I think it makes it better as an episode.
Which one was not successful? Like, we spoke out like Twilight, Harry Potter, LOTR. When they're making the first movie, they're gonna give us more in the series.
Yeah.
But Eragon, right? I have all the books of Eragon, and I read them.
There have been a few failures in that translation.
Yeah,
to
so
screen, remember?
the first movie came out, and second never really came out ever.
Yeah, it was because
I forgot the movie.
That's because they had Joss Stone in the film. Joss Stone was there, but they had a killer cast.
They had
this guy,
John Malkovich as well.
Jeremy Irons as well. Yeah.
So a lot of
whenever you say that name, I think of the book with the cover.
Yeah,
photo.
Christopher Paolini.
I totally forgot it was a movie. But see,
and the guy was young. He was like
a 15. Dude, have you ever seen an interview with him? He was such a nerd, dude.
Yeah.
He was just the author of these books was like a 15-year-old kid. So obviously it was the writing of a 15-year-old kid. It was still really good for a 15-year-old kid. But
and he also invented his own language and everything. Like, there's all these indexes at the back. So very, very like Tolkien inspired.
Sure.
Yeah.
And when it broke out, it became a big series, dude. Like people were like really raving about it.
Yeah, I remember like when we were in school, it was a big thing.
Yeah, and a movie came out, and the movie was like,
Yeah.
I mean, you can have a misstep. I think they've tried with so many series, but it doesn't really reach
even the whole
potential.
Divergent series.
What happened? But they finished it.
They
right?
came with a direct-to-video for the third one. They didn't even like release it.
What?
Yeah.
Really? Oh, what a shame.
So,
I'm glad that way the Hunger Games did really well for itself, because like the Hunger Games were awesome movies, man. I really dug it. And
but they didn't have to split the third one again for something.
They didn't. Yeah. It's so true. They didn't have to do that.
They didn't do anything. She just like sits and listens to birds chirping.
Yeah, I know. The third film, which came out was just like supposed to be this whole Third Reich kind of like inspired piece.
Yeah, them fighting back.
And that's it. That's all that. The whole film doesn't have anything to it.
And so like all these, so in the books you get to see the sectors very well, right? You learn how these people have been sectorized as well.
Okay.
But here they're just like, oh, we're rebellion, so we don't have any character motivation for any of these people who are dying, right? They're just like, oh, they died in that sector. So I'm like, cool, I don't know anybody, I don't care. Right? So like when anybody close to Katniss dies, we know, like, we care about them. But anybody in the different sectors, so that was where the...
But see, this is what brings me to my point though. I want to say that I always advocate that I think books need to be made into longer formats. Whatever it be. Like I don't think the answer to it is if you have 7 books, you must make 7 films.
We're not saying 7 books. Yeah, one book for one film.
One book for one film is not appropriate. It's not adequate because, like, as you said, like, you didn't know about other sectors and whatnot just because you didn't have the freaking time to do it. While you can show a wide shot that shows you all the sectors, and it would take somebody to it would take you a page to tell you that there are 7 sectors. In one frame, I can one show you 7 sectors, but in that one page, you can get me a lot of detail, and all I can show you in that one frame is like, look, they exist.
In one of the movies, Gwendolyn Christie is standing, and I figured out that nobody apart from Game of Thrones knows how to use Gwendolyn Christie in their movies.
Oh, she was okay. Oh well, Force Awakens. But you're right. You are right. They didn't use her.
She's standing there, Hunger Games also. She's just standing there, like trying to give one badass dialogue, and that's
right. So before we move on, let's take a short break, and we'll be right back after that.
Hi, I'm Amit Verma, the host of the weekly podcast The Seen and the Unseen. In my show, I examine the seen effects and the unintended consequences of public policy and private action. I show how policies meant to help the poor often end up hurting the poor. I've done episodes so far on demonetization, GST, surgical strikes, immigration and MRP. And I will continue my forensic assault on the truth in the weeks to come.
Catch the show every Monday on the IVM Podcast app or any other podcasting app that you prefer. Or visit seenunseen.in for all the latest updates.
And we're back. So, exception to this rule that not one book makes one film and maybe it's more movies that make one book. But then we did have... So now, again... Before I even say the name of the film, I'm a huge fan of this series, The Hobbit, okay? I still loved all of The Hobbit, but we know the reaction to these films were not at all as well received as Lord of the Rings, and it's because they took a singular book and split it into 3 parts unnecessarily, but I mean, I enjoyed it.
Here's the thing, I
would take all of it.
Look, here's the thing, I have some very complicated thoughts on The Hobbit. I think...
Did you like it? Did you like it?
I enjoyed the first one. I did not like the second and third.
I enjoyed it progressively.
I like the first and third one, not the second.
Hear me out. The thing is, though, that I think there was a lot of weight on its shoulder, unfair, which you can't avoid just because of like where it is in pop culture and because of what came before it and what came before that. I'm talking obviously about the Lord of the Rings movies and then the books, obviously. But so they had the right idea, because now here's the thing: if they had made The Hobbit like an HBO series or whatever the series, then I think it would have gone down better. People would have accepted it because it wasn't trying to be the Lord of the Rings trilogy. The fact that it made it a trilogy and it was Peter Jackson again and it was the same kind of score and everything, like it was like, okay, you are literally doing what you did before and trying to redo you're a one-trick pony, you're trying to do it again. Nobody wants to see the same trick from the same pony. But if they had made it a TV show and given it a friggin' 12-season run for all that matters.
What Westworld did, I guess.
Everybody was complaining that they're stretching out The Hobbit into 3 films. Nobody would have said they're stretching out The Hobbit into like a 12-episode season, because it would have felt like a different medium because it is a different medium, right? You could have given me, I swear, I would have been so happy if before they even went on the adventure, if you give me an entire season of Bilbo and the dwarves in Hobbiton meeting each other, I would have lapped it up.
Correct.
Because that's my favorite part of the entire 3 movies. Is the very beginning when they meet each other and then there's character work, as opposed to just let's insert VFX fights here.
But my favorite is, I love Smaug and I love Lake Town and the Bard. All those characters are some of my favorites. But now actually this is a good way we can find out whether this theory works, right? So Watchmen was obviously celebrated book, graphic novel, made into a film, and now it's being made into a TV series. So we're going to see that same idea.
What do you mean? What? Give me details.
They're making this
Like, I don't know, like live action?
Yes, live action. Yeah.
Who's doing it?
I want to say it's HBO, but I doubt it is. It might be AMC. But The Walking Dead, for example, is something that has. I mean, there are exceptions to every damn rule in this, right? And the funniest thing is that The Walking Dead is something that I really love. As the series, the comic book series by Robert Kirkman. But so when I quit my job 2 years ago, the first thing I did is for 2 weeks I was like, I'm not going to search for another job. I sat and watched 4 seasons of The Walking Dead. That's the first thing I did, and it was great because it was serialized. Now it's a really terrible show.
I'm with you because I also binged up to 4 seasons and I tapped out. I think you kept going, but I tapped out. I was like,
I'm on season 7.
Guys, I've seen what is that? 80 episodes of this thing?
Yeah,
I'm done. I'm good.
Crazy.
I get it. They're still running. All right. They're running till infinitum.
Yeah. So I think.
Now there's spin-off as well. Like I don't.
Fear the Walking Dead.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, we've come to the conclusion that a page-to-screen adaptation is favorable. Everybody wants to see their stories kind of told on a bigger screen. Like you said about 12 Angry Men, it kind of, they wanted to give it a mass audience, and that was the best way to do it. And that's what we're seeing happen. We are also seeing, bad adaptations happen because everyone's running, into that game, trying to say, we've got source material, let's go and do it. At the same time, we have superhero films which don't know when to stop. We don't know where's it all ending. I was just reading an interview with Robert Downey Jr. He literally said, I have to stop before it gets embarrassing. Is what he said in his exact words. And I think that's just the trend of the world right now. Everything is being made into a serialized format. So maybe we are going to see larger adaptations of things that we love in the script form.
Here's what I'm really waiting for.
Yeah.
It might happen in our lifetime. I'm not sure.
Right? Mars.
Probably.
Yeah.
In our lifetime.
It has to, guys. I am so excited.
The only adaptation where people completely break the mold and really usurp the word adaptation as opposed to here's the story and I'm gonna like with your Blade Runner example, like he took the story, tweaked it quite a bit, but kept like the essence of like the vibe,
sure,
but made what he wanted to do with the story. That doesn't happen so often, except with Shakespeare adaptations don't have to be in the slightest way relevant. Lion King, for all
Hamlet,
best example. Like it's about a freaking lion and a talking warthog and stuff. Where did Shakespeare ever, enter the equation? Yeah. The idea is Shakespeare's. So I'm waiting to see.
Nobody told everyone saying, "Hey, we're doing an animated version of Hamlet," and then did it. But they just made the film.
Right. Well, I mean, that's the thing. I'm sure at some point in that writing room, somebody said, "Look, isn't this a little similar to Hamlet?" I said, "Hey, let's refer to the source material and look at what works in that guy's story and see what I can keep." So what I'm getting at is, I'm waiting for the day when the next J.K. Rowling comes along and writes a brilliant book and makes a series out of it and makes all kinds of money from doing that and gets world famous, and everybody says, obviously, as they inevitably will, we need to turn this into a screenplay of some sort, TV or film, whatever it is. But say, you know what, even though this is about a wizard and his friends in Hogwarts and whatnot, I'm actually going to make this about space monkeys fighting Martian androids.
It would be very difficult. If you're saying it's the next J.K. Rowling, no one would dare mess with that. That's the thing. I mean, when do
you have to wait for the person to be dead before you take such liberties?
Maybe you got to wait 500 years like we did for Shakespeare.
That's what I mean.
To kind
that's
of
why I don't
on.
think it might happen in our lifetime.
So
but
maybe
I'm sure,
in our lifetime we could adapt Star Wars into something else, because that was still in the 80s, so that was maybe 30 years ago.
Well, I mean, it was a film though. I'm talking about like a book.
Oh, of course, yes.
Yeah.
Who maybe Asimov
Rushdie. They might take a Rushdie book. They might make Midnight's Children into like some absurd robot space
Except
opera.
the world hates Rushdie, so anyway.
Which is why it would be that much more,
No, perhaps something as close to our time as, like Jules Verne, who was, and they did essentially, I mean...
Around the World in 80 Days could so easily be around the...
Mars, guys.
Around
the Mars.
Around the Mars.
That's what we keep seeing, even like, for example, Rick and Morty episodes, right? They take all these Aldous Huxley and...
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
They're taking Asimov, all these examples they're taking and they're trying to make a 20-minute episode.
Yeah, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen did something very similar by taking all these classic literature characters like Tom Sawyer and Alan Quatermain and stuff, and then just kind of, and Captain Nemo, which Nasruddin Shah played, and made it into a substandard movie. But the idea from the comics is very apparent that we're taking these characters and then doing whatever we want with it. So that's quite interesting. Also, it is that thing that we have to have a shared universe. Like everyone wants a shared universe.
It takes balls, is all I'm saying, and I have to applaud.
Yeah,
definitely. When somebody is able to do that.
Cool.
Oh well.
Naveen, thank you so much for being on this episode with us.
Thank you.
Yes, Jishnu. welcome back.
Sup?
And Tejas.
Tejas,
is a
thank you
person.
for coming back as well.
Yes, yeah, we're all back.
I had to say that.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So we're gonna ask you guys, what is your favorite adaptation from page to screen, or from novel or play, or whichever writing format to whichever big screen or small screen format? Tell us what you think. You can write to us, contactgeekfruit@gmail.com. You can go to our website, geekfruit.in. There's a contact button there as well. And you can find us on all social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, @geekfruithq. Jishnu, where can we find you on Twitter?
@Jishnu
Navin?
I'm no_Rona.
And I am @Tejasman. Cool.
I hope they get the spelling right though.
Yeah, I know.
Yep.
Good way to cap the episode.
By the way, guys, #Beethoven Stits, make it trend.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
It's a thing.
It's a thing. Thanks. Bye, you nerds.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is your captain speaking. Sorry to say, but there's been a slight delay due to the apocalypse having suddenly begun. As you can see, there's death, destruction, and chaos taking place all around us. But don't you worry, food and drinks will be served shortly, and I would recommend checking out
IVM Podcasts
to get some of your favorite Indian podcasts. We'll keep you going till this whole thing blows over. Thank you.